Hey everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video where we're doing a Patreon soap design challenge. For this month, I asked my Patreon members to name a liquid alternative that could be used as part of or all of the liquid that goes into the lye solution. I put all the suggestions into a soapy jug, and the one that came out was from Mel, who runs M Body Care, and I've left links to her business down below so you can go and check it out. Now, Mel wanted me to use rosemary tea in a soap, and I've done a little bit of research. I already know that rosemary is incredibly good to put into bath and body products, whether it be as an extract or doing an oil infusion. It's incredibly good for hair and things like that, but I didn't know what it could actually bring to a soap. Now, there is no documented proof on this, but it does say that rosemary tea in soap can bring through some skin toning effects, and it is full of antioxidants and is antibacterial as well. Now, as I said, there is no proof that this does come through into the final soap once it's been through that saponification process. So at the end of the day, my soaps are just there to clean the body, but I was still really interested to see what rosemary tea was going to bring to the soap. Now, to make my rosemary tea, I decided I was going to go and get some fresh rosemary and steep it in hot water and make a fresh rosemary tea rather than using some dried. So that's what we are going to go and do first. Let's go and see how I make my rosemary tea soap. Let's go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is make the rosemary tea for this soap, and I'm going to do it so I'll do a almost 1-for-1 lye to water ratio, and then we'll also add that tea in afterwards. So I'll make a really nice strong rosemary tea, and I'm doing it this way because I don't have access to a freezer to be able to freeze the rosemary tea and put the lye in without scorching it. So this is the best way for me to do it. I'm going to break off the leaves, and as I'm doing it, I'm kind of breaking those leaves up just to get those oils moving through so that they will seep out and into the water. I don't want this really heavy stalk in here, and I'm just going to break some of this off. I'm not really measuring it. I suppose I should. Maybe I will. Let's take that off. Oops, I'll take that back out. That will just give me a better sort of idea of the cost of the soap. So let's put those back in there, and we'll keep breaking some of this off of here. All right, that is the last little bit there all off, and I will make a note of that in my soap calculator, how much I have used. There's about 15 grams of rosemary in there. I'm going to tear that back out, and I'm going to add in my water. I'm going to add in more than what I'm actually going to need to do my lye solution with, because some of this is going to evaporate off of here. So what I'm going to do now that we've got that in there, get in all those little extra bits of leaves, going to pop it onto my hot plate here. I'm just going to bring that up to the boil and start that steeping. Once the water does come up to boil, I will take it off of the hot plate. I don't want to be stewing those leaves. I just want them to be steeping through that hot water instead. So once it comes up to the boil, I will take it off there, and then I will more than likely transfer it into a glass container and then pop on some of the biodegradable film over the top so we don't get any evaporation of that liquid. And then I will just leave that sitting there until it turns into that really nice golden color as it sits there and seeps through the water. But while it is doing that, let's get on to making the rest of the lye solution. Oh, actually, this did not take very long to get up to boil, so I am going to take that off the heat now. It is smelling really, really good. And what I'm going to do is pour my solution into the jar here. Now, I am actually using special glass jars where you can actually pour hot water into them. Be careful if you are doing this at home using regular glass jars, because it could actually crack it if you're pouring a hot liquid into cold. But these are, I can't say what they are. They begin with B. I'll put the word on the screen, and they are actually designed to be able to pour hot liquids into them. You can see already we're starting to get a nice little color change in there. So now what I'm going to do, as I said, I'm going to cover this over so we don't lose too much water through that evaporation. I did make more than was needed, but we still don't want to lose much because we'll also find that we'll lose some of it through sticking to those leaves. So that is now all covered up. Let's make the lye water for this soap. For the lye water, I have got my number 5 plastic container here, and I'm going to pour in my distilled water. Let's tear it out first, and we'll get in the amount that I need. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is do the lye in here, the sodium hydroxide. Now, some people will actually measure it out into a separate container and into here. One of the reasons I actually just pour it straight in here is because of that static electricity that this gathers, and if I'm putting it into other containers, I end up with lye beads everywhere. So I just like to put it straight into my lye container here. So I've got that all teared out, and let's start popping that in. I also know roughly how much my cups hold, so I know how many I can put in before I then have to start pouring it in a little bit slower so that we don't overshoot the amount needed. Almost there. We may need to get just a little bit more from out of the container. I am actually in my shop today, but I haven't got it open right now, and I have got the air on to help make sure that we're well ventilated in here. So I've got that on. I'm going to pop the lid straight on that so it doesn't get knocked over, and I'm going to give that a bit of a stir. And what I tend to do is also just put the cap over it slightly just to hold some of those fumes back in that initial sort of heating up, the exothermic reaction that we've got here. And because I am using an almost 1-for-1, you can see that it is quite a cloudy, milky solution. It will clear just a little bit, but the stronger your lye solution is, in terms of the more you are towards that 1-for-1, the cloudier and thicker your lye solution will be. Now what I'm going to do is just pop the lid on there. I do have a ventilated hole so the steam can evaporate. I'm going to pop that off somewhere nice and safe that no one can access it while my shop is open. We're going to let this one cool down. Once our tea's steeped, this is cooled, I'll be able to pour some oils from off of my oil tank, and we'll get on with making this rosemary soap. Okay, it is the next day. Rosemary has been steeping in our water. You can see it's taken on those lovely colours from out of the leaves. And we're going to start making our soap. So let's get this one unwrapped first. And what I'm going to do is pour what I need into my oils here. I'm not going to pour it straight into my lye water because that's going to create the exothermic reaction to happen again and potentially scorch my rosemary tea. So what I'm going to do is just put my sieve over the top because I don't want any of these leaves in there. That will actually cause a bit of a problem because they are wet. They'll potentially grow mold. So let's tear that out and we'll pour out the amount that I need. Sorry, I'm concentrating so I don't overpour. I do have a little bit left over in there, but I will not be using that in this soap, otherwise I will have too much liquid. So let's get all this out the way. So now we're going to soap as we always do. And look, I have a new stick blender courtesy of Lee from Wickedly Good. She gave me this when we went on our trip. I'd been saying I wanted that cordless blender. She told me where to go and get them. They didn't have any when I went, so she actually went and grabbed me one and gave me this while I was on holiday. And I have used it to make a few soaps that haven't been filmed, and this is the first time it's going to be christened on camera, so very excited about that. All right, so I've just poured in my lye water, and I can actually see already that lye water has interacted with that rosemary tea. Let's get it blended. We'll bring it up to a light emulsion. I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick mess around because this smells absolutely amazing with just that rosemary water in there. So I've just pulled out literally a tablespoon of soap batter, so it's not really going to make any difference to the end weight of my soaps. But I've just poured that out and popped it into my little heart-shaped mold. We can then see what happens to the colour of the soap, and also whether or not that rosemary scent holds in there, because, oh, it smells really good. All right, let's move on to the next bit. I'm going to pour some off. Oh, this is heating up, so we can't mess around too much. I'm going to pour some off we're going to do 2 layers, as you would have seen in the cover photo for the soap. So I'm going to pour some off for the bottom like so. Into the bottom I am going to put some spirulina, and what I want, because as I mentioned in the video I did where I did Katie's Builder soap, I'm kind of figuring I am not using enough natural colorants to get color to stay. So let's measure out the spirulina into this pot. Now with this spirulina, because I'm actually not infusing it in the oils, it will color the soap, but it will also leave just a slight exfoliating feel through this base layer. So I've got my spirulina in there. And into the big pot, I was actually going to add some green clay, and then I took the top off it and went, no, we're not adding green clay. I have to order some more in. So I'm actually going to put in some moringa leaf powder into this one, so we get a dark bottom and a light top. So let's get another spoonful of that, get it all measured out. That's looking good, and hopefully with the amount that I've used, we might get some good colour in here. It's a bit too much. All right, that's looking good. All right, so let's first of all mix our bottom layer together. I have to learn how to clip this one on properly. I'm so used to using my others. I have got a feeling that that is not going to be enough spirulina to hold that colour in there nicely. So I am going to add just a little bit more. We don't want that touching the bottom. We want to tear that out. Come on, tear. I'm going to add another half of what I had. So I do want this to come up nice and dark in colour. That's looking better. That's the sort of colour that I am after there. I have brought this up to a bit more of a medium trace because, as I said, I am going to do 2 layers. Also don't get much choice because it is quite warm, so it's going to trace faster naturally because of that. But the essential oil blend that we are putting in hopefully will thin this out a little bit. It still smells really good with just that rosemary tea in here, but in my little container here I have some rosemary essential oil, a bit of peppermint and some lavender essential oil. Going to give that a good mix. That's come up really nice. I do like that. It has thinned out just a little bit. I was thinking I would pour a layer of this on the bottom and then do a drop pour into that one. Maybe I can still do that actually. I just need to be a little bit smarter with what I'm doing. We'll see. We'll see. It might thicken up a little bit too much. We'll see what happens. Always changing my mind while making soaps. Let's grab our soap mold here. Everything is nicely mixed in, really pleased with that colour. So I'm going to pour most of that in, like so. Keep some for swirling through, just to bring the top and the bottom layers together. That's my sort of main reason for doing it. I've got a real slope on the bench at the moment. I'm going to pour in a bit more in there because I just don't think it's quite filled up enough. I'm going to push that to the back of the bench where it's a little bit more even, and let's get on with this one with our moringa leaf powder. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that one wrong. It's funny how different stick blenders, like they all do the same thing, but the way we work with them is different, like how we connect them onto the bottom or the power part, and then how we actually clean them. They all clean out differently. This one's actually quite easy to clean the inside out to get all of that soap out. But it is funny how they're all different. And then we just get those stick blenders that we just absolutely love using. And I think I am liking this one. It's a shame that I think they've actually been discontinued. It was a Kmart one, and I think it may have been discontinued, which is why they weren't in any of our local stores. All right. Let's get all of that into the pot. So I am going to be able to do my little swirl. We'll just do it in the pot. All right, got my pot nicely scraped out there. Let's grab this one back. That's looking pretty good. We'll give that just a bit of a textured top in here. It's still, it's not completely set up. It's probably a little bit softer than I would like, but I don't want to miss my pour time with that other green. That's a lovely green it's come up. Hopefully it will hold. I have used that moringa leaf powder before, or what's it called? Yeah, this stuff. I have used it before, and although it came up a nice color when I was making, it did fade just a little bit. So hopefully this time, because I've really ramped up how much I've put in there, the color will hold. And the best way to find that out, because I must admit I'm running a little bit late with making this soap. It should have been made a couple of weeks ago, but I've just not had that chance to get in and go and get that rosemary to do the rosemary tea with. So the photos on here are only going to be about a week or two old. Oh, I don't think I need the spatula. I think that's just going to cause me problems. So in a few more weeks, it will actually be on the website, and we'll have the proper colours for this soap. I actually don't think we're going to get too much of a swirl. I should have swirled it with my spatula in the bucket. But oh well, there'll be a little bit of colour in there, which is okay. All right, let's get the rest of this scraped out. It's smelling really good. I really do hope that rosemary water smell does come through, because then that will give a really good way of just naturally scenting unscented soap. So we'll see what happens with that little tester piece I've got over there. Going to finish getting this all scraped out, and then I think we'll just do a very, very simple spoon top on here, because this is part of the Clay Botanicals range. So for these soaps, it really is all about the ingredients and the essential oils, and not necessarily having a decorative top. So we'll do that in just a moment. Oh, it says, we're going to keep this very, very simple. I think I'm just going to, I think I need, there's a lot of thinks in that, isn't there? No, I think it will actually work. I was just going to do a very simple spoon movement across the top of the soap, and I was thinking, oh, maybe it's not firm enough, but I think it is. It's just going to give that really nice swishy look. It's a bit difficult to do. I see other people do this, and they just look so easy. I've never been very good with doing tops with my spoon, but let's get it right down into that corner there. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, as she says, as she sticks the spoon in and ruins it. No, I'm happy with that. We'll just do that top bit, because I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, but there it is. Let's not touch it and ruin it anymore. That is the rosemary soap in the mold. We're going to leave it set up, and we'll be back shortly, and we'll take a look at the inside. All right, it is the next day, and we're ready to cut into the rosemary tea soap. It is smelling absolutely wonderful. I am loving the colors this has come up. I am really, really hoping that the colors do hold and stay. but I won't know for a couple more weeks. As I said, I'm really late with making this particular soap. It will be available in about mid-July. So if you do follow on socials, you'll be able to see pictures of this one. It's cut through. That is really soft. Got a little bit of black soap from my previous one. Now, before I do actually reveal that soap, remember I took that little bit off to make a little bit of a tester, and that is it. It's got a very, very, very faint scent from that rosemary. I definitely don't think this is going to hold throughout the cure, but it hasn't actually affected the colour of my soap batter to date. So I'm actually going to put that onto the cure rack along with the rest of this soap. Let's get rid of this end piece. So that will go onto the cure rack with the rest of the soap, and then we'll see what happens. I think this might discolour from what I can see on that piece. Let's see. Oh, that is the inside. See that really dark brown ring? That is really unusual for essential oil blends to create that discolouring. So that must be something to do with the rosemary, and it's discoloured really oddly. It's kind of like got this perfectly square ring, and then it's the same nice dark green on the outside. I have never seen discolouring like that before, so it will be very interesting to see what actually does happen with this one. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it's looking right now. Hopefully, as I said, the colours will hold. I did really increase the amount that I was putting in here, and the essential blend in here, the essential oil blend, is really, really nice. It has given me that sort of effect I was after. Even though I was going for the layers, I didn't want it just to be two distinct colours. I wanted to have that sort of blend of colour going through the top just to tie it all together. So really pleased, but yeah, really, really curious about what that dark ring is going to do, because as I said, the essential oils shouldn't go brown like that. There was no vanilla or vanillin in any of those essential oils. So it has to be to do with that rosemary tea, but it hasn't gone down. It's only been in this moringa powder colour. It hasn't gone down into the spirulina. That is really, really bizarre. So as I said, follow along with me over on socials, and in about mid-July I will post the final photos of the cure of this soap, and then you'll be able to see what that really interesting line has done. I bet I could never replicate it again. But I hope you have enjoyed coming along with me as I made this soap using a rosemary tea as part of my water replacement. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you then. Bye. All right, so I'm just back with a very quick clip to go at the end of this video. After I finished cutting the soap and I popped it onto the tray, over the next couple of hours, I watched this soap do some pretty funky things. And this is the result the next day. I have never seen a soap stay light on the outside and darken through the middle. It is absolutely fascinating what this soap has done. It is going to head off onto the cure rack for those 4 to 5 weeks, and I will be posting final photos of this once it has done its cure, and then we'll see whether or not that light ring has disappeared. But that is absolutely fascinating what this one has done. But that's it. I am off now. No more extra bits. Enjoy the end of the video with the photos. Bye.